Saeed Naqvi, Dr. Zahid Qazi, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to ORF and this very special talk by a very special person. I've had the privilege of knowing Saeed Bhai for many years now, long before we became colleagues at the Observer Research Foundation. In fact, I got to know him and started admiring him long before I actually met him. And it was friends Doordarshan that introduced me to him. So let me add my own personal bit of introduction in addition to what my colleague Sharmin Contractor said. It all happened in the latter half of the 1980s, the heyday of Doordarshan. Doordarshan was the only channel those days, and it used to run, unlike now, many fine programs and many inspiring short films, and perhaps the first music video in India. It was the days of Mile Sur Mera Tumhara, and it was in that tradition that Saeed Bhai used to produce and anchor a highly inspiring and educative series. I think it was called Hamara Bharat. And week after week, he used to focus on India's amazingly plural but essentially unifying and integrative culture. The culture of Kabir and Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, the culture of Ras Khan, the culture of Ajmer Sharif, and also the culture of our own Haji Ali. A culture that united Hindus and Muslims across the apparent divide. I used to admire Saeed Bhai's research. I also used to admire his rich and deep voice, which you will hear soon. But above all, friends, I used to admire the conviction and passion with which he spoke and presented his programs. Subsequently, when I got to know him in Delhi, my admiration for him grew even more, because I came to know what a warm-hearted person he is. And then I also came to know his brother in Delhi, another distinguished journalist, Javed Naqvi, who is the India correspondent now of the Karachi-based Daily, the Dawn newspaper, founded by none other than Muhammad Ali Jinnah. A very good newspaper and great columns, friends. And he himself now a columnist there. At Javed Bhai's house, I have attended several memorable musical evenings, songs in celebration of Holi, songs in honor of Sufi saints, and also one evening when Javed Bhai arranged a discourse by the spiritual guru Jaggi Vasudev. All this shows what a truly distinguished family Saeed, Javed belong to, a family that truly represents the best of India. When Saeed Bhai said to me a few weeks ago that he's coming to Bombay, I immediately grabbed the opportunity of asking him to give a talk at the Observer Research Foundation Mumbai. And he readily agreed, and here we are. Thank you, Saeed Bhai, for making this evening happen. Welcome. Friends, the subject of today's talk was suggested by me. Observer Research Foundation has been active in Delhi for many years, in fact for 20 years now, and it has many projects and many publications to its credit. and some of you might have seen a small collection of ORF Delhi's publications out there. Here in this office, ORF is just 6 months old, and one of the 6 focus areas that we have chosen for study and advocacy is India's inclusive development. Inclusive both geographically, inclusive socially. And it should be obvious to every unprejudiced person that there can be no inclusive development of India without the inclusive development of the Indian Muslim community. Development has no meaning if Muslims, whether they are living in Bhendi Bazaar or living in the villages of Uttar Pradesh or Gujarat, they experience and enjoy the fruits of development and the fruits of security. Security for all, development for all. Dignity for all, justice for all. Here, I want to share just a few thoughts of mine because the occasion is appropriate. It's not that the entire Muslim community is a victim of deprivation and underdevelopment. This misconception should really be discarded. Some political forces, for their own reasons, have been projecting this untruth that the entire Muslim community is a victim of underdevelopment, social, economic, educational backwardness, which is not true. At the same time, there are other political forces which simply deny that a very large section of the Indian Muslim community is indeed a victim of underdevelopment, a victim of poverty, educational backwardness, and they also deny and dismiss the fact that the state and society together need to take effective and determined measures to ensure inclusive development of the Muslim community and of course every other section of Indian community. We have heard both points of view in the debate on the Sacha Committee's report. I'm sure Saeed Bhai will enlighten us today with his own deep insights and studied perspectives on why we are discussing the topic of inclusive development of the Indian Muslims and how we can actually move towards this goal. Of course, there is a very tragic background of India's partition. We haven't really overcome the after effects of that tragedy, after effects that are being felt here in Pakistan, in Bangladesh. So in a sense, this issue of inclusive development has to be placed in the overall context of inclusive development of the entire South Asian region. Just one more thought, friends. Development usually is discussed in purely or mainly economic terms. That is totally inappropriate when we are discussing the development, inclusive development of the Indian Muslim community. We have to place it in the context of social integration, national integration. Social and national integration is possible only with emotional integration. What is really required in India is emotional integration between the two main communities, and of course even other smaller communities, but most certainly between Hindus and Muslims. And my own view is that we have a lot to learn from our own tradition. Hindus, Muslims, and even other communities, we are all children of one Mother India. In a family, There is no concept of exclusion. Can there be? If we are one family, there can never be any place for excluding or depriving any member. And therefore, we have to re-establish this concept of the great Indian family in which nobody is deprived, nobody is excluded. That takes us back to the kind of program that Saeed Bhai used to run, Hamara Bharat. It is sad that we have so many new channels now, but very few of them, they propagate the kind of message that Saeed Bhai used to do back in the 80s. I shall conclude my remarks by reciting a poem by Kashmir's greatest 20th century poet, Mahzoor, Ghulam Ahmad Mahzoor. Kashmir is in turmoil. It is appropriate that we listen to the words of wisdom of this great poet Mahzoor. Bathe in the Sindh water, meditate at Manasbal, one of the sacred lakes in Kashmir. Bathe in the Sindh water, meditate at Manasbal, and see God on Harmukh. As Kashmiris, you share the same land, the same ethos. Don't alienate one another for naught. Muslims are milk and Hindus sugar. Muslims are milk and Hindus sugar. Mix milk and sugar in sweet accord. Shed ignorance and reckon who are friends and foes of our motherland. Shed ignorance and reckon who are friends and foes of our motherland. Don't invite strangers to mediate in internal feuds. Resolve them yourself. Mahzoor has given a lesson in unity. Remember it and teach it to each other. Friends, Saeed Bhai is one of those persons who taught this lesson to me when I was a young journalist in Bombay, and I'm very happy that we have him here to talk on inclusive development of the Indian Muslim community. Thank you very much.